There's a sacred quiet that settles over the world when night begins to fall, a gentle stillness that invites the weary heart to rest. As we gather in this moment together, before sleep takes us into its soft embrace, heaven leans close, whispering truths we often miss in the noise of the day. So before anything else, I want to welcome you into this peaceful corner of the evening. Whether you are listening from your room, your car, a quiet chapel, or a place where the day has felt heavy, you are not here by accident. You are drawn here because God desires to meet you in the stillness of this night. My dear friends, welcome. If you are new to this place of prayer, welcome to the Sacred Heart family. Here we pray with one another and for one another, trusting that God gathers every intention, every sigh, every silent hope. I'm grateful you're here. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders loosen and allow this space to become your refuge. Right now, as night gently descends, heaven is inviting you to surrender your day, your worries, and your restless thoughts into God's hands. As we welcome the night, we ask for something precious, discernment. The world may offer shadows that look like light, words that sound true but are hollow, paths that promise relief but lead to emptiness. Tonight, we ask God to give us eyes that see clearly, hearts that cling to what is good, and wisdom to discern what truly comes from Him. Discernment is not merely the ability to tell right from wrong. It is the grace to recognize the difference between what is good and what is almost good, between the voice of God and the voice that imitates Him. And as the world quiets, we ask for the grace to rest in God's promise. I will dwell among you. I will be near. I will guide you. These are not distant words unspoken once and forgotten. These are truths God repeats to every generation, and tonight He repeats them to you. In the reflection from the prophet Zechariah, we hear a message that reaches across time with irresistible tenderness. The Lord Himself is coming to dwell among His people, not above them, not far from them, among them, with you. And the prophet tells us that all nations will recognize His presence, that even silence will fall before His glory. Imagine that. Silence not as emptiness, but as awe. Silence as worship. Silence as the soul surrendering in the presence of a God who chooses to draw close. As this night unfolds, let that truth settle into your spirit. God is not distant. He is near enough to hear your breath, near enough to catch your tears, near enough to understand the thoughts you do not speak aloud. When we realize His nearness, everything begins to slow. The rush inside us begins to soften. Our worries lose their tight grip. We stop striving to fix what is beyond our control. We rest in the truth that God works in silence, that His timing is perfect, that His wisdom is deeper than ours. So many times we look only at outward appearances, what seems successful, what looks comforting, what appears spiritual. But God sees what is hidden. He sees motives, intentions, desires. He invites us not to judge by impressions, but to let His truth govern our choices. Tonight we ask Him to reshape our vision so that we see not with the eyes of fear, but with the eyes of faith. As we prepare for rest, we turn our hearts toward the wisdom of Bishop Fulton Sheen, who reminds us that the enemy of our souls comes in disguises, appearing kind, insightful, compassionate, even Christ-like. But Sheen says something unforgettable. Satan never has and never will appear with scars. Only Christ's love bears wounds. Only Christ's love has the marks of sacrifice. The voice of genuine goodness is always costly. It is shaped by surrender, humility, patience, and love. When you listen for God, remember this truth. The real presence of Christ is known by His wounds. The love that saves you is the love that bled for you. So tonight we pray for the wisdom to recognize the difference between what flatters us and what sanctifies us, between what soothes our ego and what heals our soul. As we enter more deeply into this moment of prayer, I invite you, wherever you are, to share your intentions in your heart or in the comments of this prayer. If you are watching with others, you are not praying alone. Across different homes, countries, and time zones, hearts are kneeling in the same quiet, asking for mercy, healing, forgiveness, guidance, and peace. Our intentions rise like one prayer before God, carried by the love that binds us as a family of faith. Let yourself feel the comfort of that unity. You belong to a community that prays with you and for you. Now, in this stillness, we unite ourselves with the Church's November devotion to the holy souls in purgatory. We remember them with tenderness, those who long for the light of God's face, those journeying through the purification of love. Each prayer we offer becomes an act of mercy that lifts them closer to eternal joy. And tonight, as part of one spiritual family, we ask God to pour His mercy upon them and upon us. Quietly, we place ourselves before God. The day may have been long, it may have been beautiful or painful, productive or confusing. Whatever it was, it is now behind you. You do not need to carry it further. Let your breathing slow. Let your heart soften. Let your mind settle. Imagine yourself placing your day into God's hands, releasing every moment into His care. He sees everything that happened, every choice you made, every challenge you faced, every victory, every mistake, and He receives it all with love. You are safe here, safe in His presence, safe in His mercy, safe in His truth. As this night prayer begins, open your heart to the grace that comes when you surrender. Let the quiet become a meeting place between your soul and the God who calls you by name. Let His peace rest upon you like a warm cloak. Let His nearness become your comfort. Let His truth become your light in the darkness. Tonight He invites you not just to pray, but to rest in Him, trust in Him, and be renewed by Him. As the night deepens, so does the quiet inside your soul, and you begin to notice how prayer gently reshapes the spaces within you. What started as a simple desire to end the day with God becomes a tender unfolding, a slow softening of the heart. The more you rest in His presence, the more you realize how much of your day was lived in motion, decisions made quickly, thoughts scattered in many directions, worries rising like waves. But now, in this sacred stillness, something begins to settle. The soul that was stretched thin begins to breathe again. You understand in a new way that discernment is not only for the mind, it is for the heart. And when the heart grows quiet, God's voice becomes clearer. In this moment, you sense the gentle invitation to let go of whatever tried to cling to you today. An unkind word someone spoke over you, a disappointment you didn't expect, a fear that followed you like a shadow, a memory that resurfaced without warning. Night is God's reminder that you do not have to carry these things into tomorrow. His nearness is not symbolic. It is living, active, and deeply personal. When you lay down your burdens before sleep, heaven receives them. God doesn't look at the weight you carry and judge you. He looks at the weight and longs to lift it from your shoulders. You think again about Zechariah's message, that the Lord Himself comes to dwell among His people. The more you sit with that truth, the more it transforms your understanding of God's heart. He is not a distant ruler watching from the clouds. He is a Father who draws close. He is not a silent observer of your struggles. He is a companion who walks with you through every valley. The presence of God is not something you must earn. It is a gift freely given because He delights in being near His children. Tonight, that truth meets you like warm light in the darkness. As you reflect, your thoughts drift to the words of Bishop Fulton Sheen, whose wisdom pierces through confusion with startling clarity. He reminds you that spiritual deception often comes dressed in convincing clothing. The enemy of your soul does not approach with obvious evil. He imitates light, comfort, and reassurance. But the disguise collapses in the presence of one undeniable truth. Satan has no scars. There is no sacrifice in him, no wound of love, no mark of surrender. The love of Christ, however, bears scars that shine like diamonds in the night. His wounds are proof that real goodness costs something, that real holiness is born of self-giving love. When you seek discernment, look for the marks of sacrifice. Look for the cross. Look for the love that bleeds and heals and restores. This is the love that guards you tonight. Your heart begins to pray not only for yourself, but for those who are suffering, those you know and those you don't. You lift up the souls in purgatory, trusting that your prayers reach them through the mysterious communion of saints. You think of loved ones who have passed, of strangers whose names you will never know, of souls who long for the full presence of God but have not yet reached it. Your prayer becomes a bridge, your compassion a light that guides them closer to eternal joy. There is a tenderness in your heart as you remember them. The bond between heaven and earth feels thin tonight, like a veil that has been drawn back just enough to let you glimpse eternity. Then slowly, your thoughts turn to your own life, to the choices you made today and the ones you will make tomorrow. Discernment is not only about avoiding temptation, it is about recognizing God's invitations. Throughout the day, He speaks in small moments, a nudge toward kindness, a whisper to be patient, a gentle reminder to forgive, a call to humility when pride begins to rise. But these whispers get lost in the noise unless you learn to quiet your soul. Tonight, that quiet reveals moments you may have missed, places where God reached out to you, offering the chance to choose love over resentment, peace over anxiety, compassion over indifference. The more you reflect, the more you realize that God is not disappointed when you miss those moments. He is patient. He is merciful. He invites you again and again with the tenderness of someone who knows your heart intimately. Every night, He gives you the chance to begin again. Every sunrise is a new mercy. Every sunset is a gentle cleansing. And tonight, as you rest in prayer, you feel a growing desire to live tomorrow with deeper awareness, deeper compassion, deeper surrender. You also become aware of the spiritual battles that sometimes shape your days, the temptations that whisper discouragement, the doubts that cloud your faith, the sinful habits that try to pull you back into old patterns. As you pray, you sense that God is strengthening you, not through dramatic visions or loud revelations, but through soft, steady grace. Discernment is a shield He places over your heart, helping you recognize which thoughts come from Him and which do not. He teaches you to pause before reacting, to breathe before speaking, to examine your motives before acting. This slow formation is the hidden work of holiness. And as the night grows quieter, you find yourself drawn once more into the warmth of God's presence. You imagine Him sitting beside you, His hand resting gently over yours, not to restrain you, but to reassure you. You sense His closeness in the way peace settles around your thoughts, in the way your heart feels less restless, in the way your fears begin to soften. God is near, so near that the beating of your heart becomes a quiet echo of His love. You pray for those who are suffering tonight, the ill, the lonely, the frightened, the forgotten. You ask God to stretch His mercy over them like a blanket of light, to be their comfort in the darkness. You pray for families separated by conflict, for souls weighed down by grief, for people searching for meaning, for children who long for safety and love. As you intercede, you realize something profound. Prayer expands the heart. The more you pray, the more your compassion grows. The more compassion grows, the more you reflect the heart of Christ. And this is the very essence of discernment, not merely knowing what is right, but choosing what is loving. In these quiet moments, you sense God inviting you to release the last pieces of your day, the ones you held on to even as you prayed. He asks you to trust Him with the parts of your life that still feel uncertain, the relationships you fear losing, the decisions that trouble your peace, the wounds you do not know how to heal. He asks you to rest in Him, to trust that nothing entrusted to His hands is ever lost. And as you surrender these things, you feel the weight shift from your shoulders to His. This is the peace that only God can give. Peace that settles the restless heart. Peace that silences fear. peace that prepares you for the gift of sleep. You are not alone tonight, and you never will be. God dwells among his people, and tonight he dwells with you. Night continues to unfold in quiet layers, and as you remain in this space of prayer, you begin to sense how God gently reveals what the heart is too hurried to notice during the day. There is a softness in the darkness, a sacred hush that opens the soul to truths that cannot be heard when everything around you is loud. The more you rest in this stillness, the more you realize that discernment is not simply a spiritual tool. It is a way of living slowly, intentionally, and in the presence of God. Tonight, that presence begins to illuminate the corners of your inner life, bringing light to places you had forgotten needed healing. As your heart settles into the rhythm of prayer, memories from the day drift through your mind like passing clouds. Some are light, moments of joy, small victories, conversations that brought peace or laughter. But others settle heavier on your chest. Unkind thoughts, impatience, irritation, distractions, temptations that tugged at you more strongly than you expected. You don't dwell on them with shame. Instead, you lay them before God like stones you no longer want to carry. In this moment, you recognize that discernment means learning to identify the weight you were never meant to bear. And God, in his infinite patience, takes each stone from you with tenderness. The more you release, the freer your spirit feels. You begin to understand that this nightly surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the soul acknowledging that it cannot find its way alone. Zechariah's prophecy echoes again in your memory. The Lord himself is coming to dwell among his people. When you hear the word dwell, something deep within you stirs. God does not visit you like a guest who plans to leave. He remains, he abides. He plants his presence in your life even when you are unaware. The God who dwells with you is the same God who hovered over the void before creation, the same God who walked with Israel through the desert, the same God who allowed himself to be laid in a manger and nailed to a cross. His dwelling is not symbolic, it is personal and unwavering. And in that truth, discernment becomes not a fearful task, but a peaceful resting. When God dwells with you, you do not need to search anxiously for his will. His will begins to shape your desires, your thoughts, your reactions. He teaches you not by force, but by presence. You sense that the more you spend time in prayer, the more your spiritual instincts grow sharper. You begin to notice when peace lifts, when a thought pulls you away from God, when a temptation disguises itself as a comfortable escape. You realize that the soul can be trained to listen, just as the body can be trained to move. Discernment is the training of the heart to hear the whisper of God even in darkness. Your mind returns again to Fulton Sheen's words, that Satan may cloak himself in what appears to be goodness, but he will never bear the scars of Christ. You think of how often the world presents choices wrapped in glitter, choices that promise comfort without sacrifice, spiritual shortcuts without surrender. But the heart that knows the wounds of Christ recognizes truth by its cost. Real love always costs something. Real goodness always bears the mark of humility. Real holiness always leads you toward the cross, not away from it. And as you reflect on this, you feel a longing to align your life more deeply with the wounded, redeeming love of Christ. You want your discernment to be shaped not by fear, but by the desire to choose what resembles him. A gentle silence follows your reflection, and in that silence, compassion rises within you once more. You think of those who suffer tonight, not in the abstract, but with real faces, real names, real stories. You think of the souls in purgatory, longing for God's light. You think of loved ones who have passed, wondering what mysteries they now see so clearly. You think of sinners who feel too far gone, of families torn by conflict, of people lying awake with worry, of children who fear the dark. And in this tender awareness, your heart becomes a vessel carrying each soul into God's presence. You sense the power of intercession, not as a task, but as a privilege, the privilege of loving others through prayer. In this moment, Prayer becomes larger than your own life. It becomes a river of mercy flowing outward from your heart into the world. You allow your thoughts to expand even further, embracing the spiritual battles that many face silently. You think of those plagued by temptation, those struggling to forgive, those trying to rebuild trust, those healing from wounds that others cannot see. You think of the invisible cries of those who walk through shadows, holding on to hope with trembling hands. You lift them all to God, asking Him to protect them, strengthen them, heal them, and guide them through the darkness. And as you pray for them, you feel God's compassion expanding inside you, shaping your heart to resemble the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Gradually, your attention turns inward again, not to focus on your weaknesses, but to embrace God's nearness. You sense Him beside you, not in dramatic visions, but in the quiet assurance that fills your spirit. His presence feels gentle, steady, unwavering. You imagine His hand resting lightly over yours, His gaze full of understanding, His voice soft with mercy. You begin to speak to Him from the deepest part of your heart, not with formal words, but with honesty. You tell Him your concerns, your hopes, your longings. You confess your fears. You ask for wisdom to navigate tomorrow with grace. You ask for the strength to choose love when resentment tempts you, to choose patience when anger rises, to choose prayer when distractions pull you away. And in this intimate conversation, you realize how deeply God delights in your honesty. He is not moved by eloquence. He is moved by sincerity. He listens not to the style of your prayer, but to the posture of your heart. He receives every word with compassion. Nothing you say surprises Him. Nothing you hide is hidden from Him. Nothing you fear scares Him away. In this place of honesty, discernment becomes clearer, because now you are not simply thinking, you are listening. As you listen, you begin to sense the ways God has been leading you quietly throughout your life. Moments that once felt random now appear connected. Doors that closed protected you. Opportunities that opened shaped you. People who entered or left your life each played a role in guiding you toward Him. You begin to understand that God's will is not something to fear, but something to trust, because His will has always been intertwined with His love for you. Discernment then becomes not an anxious guessing game, but a gentle recognition of the paths that draw you closer to Him. You also sense God inviting you to forgive yourself where you have fallen short. Discernment requires clarity, and clarity is clouded when self-condemnation lingers. You remember that God does not point to your failures with accusation, but with healing. His mercy is stronger than your weakness. His love is deeper than your mistakes. He invites you tonight not to relive your shortcomings, but to release them. When you release them, you create space for new grace, new beginnings, new strength. As the night continues to wrap itself around you, you feel a growing peace, a peace not born of circumstances, but of surrender. Your heart slows, your thoughts soften, your spirit becomes still. You begin to understand that the purpose of evening prayer is not only to end the day well, but to prepare your soul for rest. When you pray, you lay down not only your body, but your burdens. You trust that God watches over you with a love that never sleeps. Before this part comes to its close, you sit quietly with the awareness that God has been near from the very beginning. From the moment you open this prayer, from the moment your heart whispered its first intention, from the moment you let Him draw close in the silence. And in this awareness, you find a truth that shapes the journey of discernment. When God dwells with you, you are never lost. The night has grown deep and quiet, and as you continue resting in this sacred space of prayer, the presence of God settles even more gently around you, like a soft mantle laid over your shoulders. You begin to sense that the work God has been doing in your heart throughout this evening is reaching its fullness. What started as a simple intention to pray before sleep has unfolded into a profound encounter, a slow unveiling of truth, tenderness, and peace. The silence of the night no longer feels empty. It feels inhabited. It feels like a sanctuary where the soul can finally breathe without fear. You find yourself reflecting on how differently your heart feels now compared to when the day began. Earlier, there may have been noise inside you, questions without answers, concerns pressing close, small irritations, lingering anxieties, the pull of temptations, the heaviness of decisions that seemed unclear. But here now, in the quiet presence of God, those once sharp edges have softened. You see how discernment is not merely the process of identifying right from wrong, but the grace to distinguish the voice of love from the voice of confusion, the voice of peace from the voice of pressure, the voice of Christ from the voice of the world. Tonight, discernment feels less like a task and more like a gentle invitation, a quiet whisper reminding you that God alone is the source of clarity. As you reflect, the words of Zechariah return to your heart once more. The Lord himself will dwell among his people. The full weight of that promise rests beautifully upon you. God does not visit you like a passing guest. He abides with you. He is here in your waking and your resting, in your struggles and your victories, in your weaknesses and your strengths. His nearness is not conditional on your perfection. It is rooted in his love. The God who dwells with you is not waiting for you to fix yourself before drawing near. He is the one who heals you in the very act of drawing near. Tonight, he dwells with you not simply to comfort, but to transform, to guide, and to guard. You let that truth sink into your heart as you recall the wisdom of Fulton Sheen. His reminder echoes across time. The enemy of your soul disguises himself with false goodness, but he will never bear the wounds of sacrifice. Only Christ's love carries scars, holy scars, radiant scars, scars that speak of suffering freely embraced so you could be redeemed. Discernment, then, becomes the ability to recognize the love that costs something. Christ's love cost him everything, and yet he gives it freely. When confusion clouds your heart, look to the one whose hands are marked by nails. His wounds will always reveal what is real. In the stillness, your heart widens with compassion for others who also face the struggles of the night. You think of the holy souls in purgatory, longing for the fullness of God's presence, and you lift them into his mercy with tender love. You think of your own loved ones who have gone before you, some deeply missed, others remembered quietly, and you place them in the heart of Jesus, trusting that his mercy embraces them fully. You think of strangers around the world who lie awake tonight with heavy burdens, families shattered by grief, parents worried about their children, people living with illness, loneliness, heartbreak, or fear. The more you pray, the more your heart expands, becoming a small echo of Christ's own compassion. You sense God inviting you to keep praying for those who suffer tonight, not because your words are powerful on their own, but because love itself intercedes through you. When you pray for others, you become a vessel of his mercy. You ask God to place his hand over the sick, to calm the anxious, to comfort the grieving, to strengthen the weak, to protect the vulnerable, to bring peace to restless homes, to bring light into every shadowed place. And as you pray, something inside you shifts. A deeper tenderness forms, one that does not fade when the prayer ends. This too is discernment. Learning to recognize which thoughts draw you toward compassion and which ones pull you away from love. Gradually, your attention turns inward again, not in self-concern, but in humility. You reflect on your own journey, your own weakness, your own longing to live in spiritual clarity. You acknowledge the mistakes and failures that tried to define your day. Yet in this sacred moment, guilt loses its power. You sense God inviting you to step out of the shadows of self-criticism and into the light of mercy. Discernment requires an honest heart, but not a crushed one. God is not calling you to condemn yourself. He is calling you to allow him to heal you. You breathe deeply, releasing old regrets into his hands. You whisper your desire to begin again tomorrow with greater love, greater patience, greater attentiveness to His voice. And in return, you feel God giving you something precious. Peace. Not the fleeting peace the world promises, but a peace that settles into your soul like a quiet river flowing through your thoughts. It is the peace that comes from knowing you are loved even in your imperfection. It is the peace that comes from realizing you do not walk your path alone. It is the peace that tells you that whatever tomorrow brings, God will carry you through it. This peace settles over your mind, calming the thoughts that once scattered like leaves in the wind. It rests over your heart like a warm blanket. It eases your breathing. It prepares your spirit for rest. The night around you grows even more still, and you realize that prayer has become your resting place. The world outside may shift, tremble, or distract. But when you enter into prayer, you stand in a sanctuary that nothing can disturb. Your heart becomes anchored in God's presence. Your soul becomes steady. Your thoughts become clearer. You begin to understand that discernment is not something you achieve in a single moment. It is a way of living born from resting in God night after night, speaking with Him, listening to Him, trusting Him, surrendering the day to Him, and letting Him guide the hours that follow. Before this final part draws to a close, you pause to feel deeply what God has done in you tonight. The burdens have grown lighter, the anxieties quieter, the loneliness less sharp, the confusion less overwhelming. Your soul feels more aligned with God, more open to His voice, more prepared to walk in His truth. You sense that this is not the end of your prayer. It is a beginning of a deeper way of living, a deeper intimacy with God, a deeper confidence in His will. Discernment becomes not something you fear, but something you welcome, because it leads you into truth, into peace, and into holiness. And now, as you prepare to rest, you entrust the remainder of the night to God. You ask Him to watch over you, your home, your loved ones. You ask Him to surround your sleep with angels, to shield your dreams from fear, to guard your spirit with light. You ask Him to awaken you with renewed strength, renewed hope, renewed clarity. And you rest in the beautiful truth that the God who dwells among His people also dwells with you right now, in this very moment, and will remain with you until the morning light. May your heart sleep in grace. May your mind rest in peace. May your soul awaken tomorrow, ready to love more deeply, see more clearly, and follow God more faithfully. And may this night remind you of a truth worth carrying into every day of your life. When God is near, there is nothing to fear and everything to hope for. If this night prayer has brought peace to your spirit, please like this video, share it with someone who may need comfort tonight, subscribe for more prayers, and comment your intentions so our Sacred Heart family can lift you up in love.